is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Threema. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young from K-State Online, Cole Manbeck, former beat writer for the Manhattan Mercury. We are here breaking down K-State's win over the Iowa State Cyclones to close the regular season at 8-10 in Big 12 play and perhaps put themselves back on the NCAA tournament bubble heading into Kansas City. That calls for a toast, my friends, and make sure you raise your glass of 360 vodka from our friends at Holiday Distillery or Ben Holiday Bottled in Bond Bourbon. Whichever your poison of choice is, make sure that you stock up for a lot that we have coming up. Potentially Big 12 tournament run, hopefully NCAA tournament game for the Cats coming up. We shall see, but if not, either way, a lot of basketball to be watching, so make sure that you have plenty on hand. 360 vodka, Ben Holiday Bottled in Bond Bourbon. Go check out our friends at Holiday Distillery. Well, I have to say, guys, obviously the big takeaway after Saturday's game is what a difference a couple of cell phone wielding managers makes. K-State turns around at 18-point differential to beat Iowa State after losing by 11 in Ames. Pretty impressive performance, down 11-2 early, and after that it was pretty much all Cats. K-State was up by as many as 17 in the second half, and just kept Iowa State at basically arm's length. They got a little bit hairy there, cut down to 5 in the second half, but just a hell of an effort, man. There are a lot of different angles to this. Slump buster for Cam Carter, which was great to see. Team played really good defense and for the most part, pretty poised. Some tense moments coming down the stretch, but really handled a very good team. Iowa State fans were talking about hey, can we play our way into a 1 seed? Thinking about a potential tie for a Big 12 championship. Going into the day, and boy, not only did they get their ass kicked in Manhattan, but Kansas absolutely got their ass kicked at Houston. So that could not have gone worse for our friends in Ames on Saturday. All in all, I would say pretty good day, boys.
Yeah, Kansas State, I'm just looking at it, they led for almost 24 minutes at that game. So when you're talking about game control, you're absolutely correct in the way that they managed that. A slump buster for Cam Carter for sure. As soon as Kansas State stopped missing open shots, it was essentially over for Iowa State. And that's kind of what their defense is designed and intended to do. They like to take everything away in the paint as much as they can, even though Kansas State still had 30 points in the paint. But they like to take everything away in the paint as much as they can, really get physical and extend teams out and force them to make outside shots that are not necessarily contested, but as contested as they can make it. That's why Iowa State's really not a great matchup for BYU, because they would rather just, pump threes all night. So when I've said this before, whenever Iowa State gets into the NCAA tournament and faces a team that is just very, very content with shooting outside shots and can make them at a decent clip, they're probably in trouble just because they're such a matchup-dependent team. That's why their home and road splits are so drastic and different from one another. But at the end of the day, as soon as Kansas State began to hit the open shots that they were originally missing, I thought it was over. And I know that's not a whole lot of analysis, but sometimes basketball is that simple of a game, in my opinion.
Once again, our friends in Ames can't get a Big 12 championship, and you got to feel for them. But maybe they feel better knowing that Houston went ahead and took care of Kansas, so there wouldn't have been an opportunity anyways. But just gutted for Iowa State that, once again, the Big 12 championship trophy eludes them, and they come out of Manhattan with a loss. But I thought, the K-State trailed 18-10 with a little more than 6 minutes left in the game, and then David Hassan hits a free throw. It's 18-11. In the final 4:42 of the half, K-State closed, scoring 17 points during that time span, going 6 of 8 from the floor and 3 of 4 from 3. They started the game 0 of 8 from 3. They had 8 turnovers. They had 8 turnovers in the first 10 minutes of the game. They finished with 15 turnovers overall in the entirety of the game. So they had 7 turnovers in the last 30 minutes. Iowa State's number 2 in the country in turnover percentage forced at 26% per game. K-State turns it over on 22.5% of their possessions. So pretty a decent number below the mark that Iowa State usually gets. K-State did a decent job at taking care of the basketball. And, from that mark, when it was 18-11, K-State went on a 33-8 run, and ended up taking that 43-26 lead, took control of the game. And if you go over the last 24-42 of game action, Kansas State shot 18 of 33 from the floor. That's 55%. They were 7 of 16 from three. That's 44%. And they scored 54 points against the number 2 Ken Palm defense in the country. Kansas State was terrific. They were terrific on the defensive end of the floor. They held Iowa State to 0.87 points per possession. That is the worst mark for the Cyclones on the entire season. They played 31 games. That's the lowest points possession they had. And K-State was great on the rebounding. They were great on the glass. Iowa State out-rebounded K-State by 13 in Ames, 38-25. On this day, K-State out-rebounds Iowa State 36-27. So you're talking about a swing of 22 rebounds on the glass from minus 13 in Ames to plus 9 in Manhattan. They attacked the offensive glass, and they held Iowa State to their 5th worst offensive rebounding percentage on the season as well.
Well, another one of the huge differences here, Cole, quite obviously, other than the cheating, is the fact that you had no Gary Pollard out there to not be paying attention when somebody gets caught. Was that an elbow? I would have had to watch the TV broadcast to see if that was an elbow this time around. But to actually get the flagrant foul call and you get a couple free throws, big shot in the arm of momentum as you got the ball, too, when it looked like that was not going to be the case. So you get that as opposed to in Ames in a tight game down the stretch. Pollard's busy flirting with somebody in the stands, and you don't get that call because he's looking away. Now you got it here in Manhattan, and it did also make a difference, yes.
I would say the one call that they didn't get, and I know we're kind of going off the rails, of course, and mincing words here, but, when things felt a little tenuous or sideways at one point, it was in those final moments. Everyone, I think, was very frustrated with Tyler Perry at the 10-second call in their own half court, yeah. Right? But with only 7 or 8 seconds left, there's still 2 or 3 seconds left before the 10-second mark. Tyler Perry's about, I want to say, 3 or 4 feet away from half court, and he literally gets collided with by Damon Lipsey to get that 10-second call, right? They had a collision just before half court. I mean, that's a foul too. I guess my point was to defend that 10-second call because I hear a lot of Tyler Perry criticism for that. He literally just got forearm shivered by Damon Lipsey before he could get to half court.
I got to say, Tamon Lipsey's a pretty unlikable player.
Flopper.
The guy flops relentlessly. He did it in Ames when Kansas State played him. And look, it's hard to say, but if you watch the replay on the corner drive in the first half by Tyler Perry, it looks pretty obvious to me that Tamon Lipsey intentionally stuck his leg out to trip Tyler Perry. And that was not reviewed, but I think that was a pretty flagrant trip by Tamon Lipsey, which he'll be able to deny, and they never looked at it. But they showed the replay in Bramlage, and man, that looked obvious to me.
Well, I don't know. I didn't have any huge issues with the officiating in the game. I don't know, the call that I guess we're doing blow the whistle right now. Welcome back to the show. Cole, if you could give us all the officials' names after I make this point here. There was a charge that was called when it was one of those where the dude kind of flashed out of nowhere, and I don't remember if it was Gasson or whatever.
It was Lipsey. It was Gasson against Lipsey took it, but you're right. He didn't get. You're supposed to get a chance to establish possession with your feet on the ground. Right. The cylinder rule, yeah.
Yeah, he just had no chance. Turned around and the guy was right there, and they called it. My entire section knew that was bad because I said that was bad about 100 times in a row. Cole, who were the officials on the?
Well, first of all, did your girlfriend get to see you yell at the officials, John, on that play? Did you lose your mind on it?
Yes, she definitely saw that. Yes,
yeah. The official that made that call was our good old friend Ray Natilli, who blew the call, and you also had Brooks Wells on the whistle, and the third guy, his first name's Chris. I'd never seen him before. He was fine, whatever. I'm not here to complain too much about the officiating, other than one observation I had from the game, guys, was I don't think I've ever seen a coach just kind of kiss up to the officials and get them engaged with them. And credit to Otzelberger, he was able to do it. But those guys were in his huddle half the time. They're laughing, butt taps with him. It was weird. It was really weird to watch how they engaged with Otzelberger. But at the end of the day, the officiating was fine. It's whatever. So, but yeah, that was an awful call on the charge.
The one time where I thought Otzelberger had a beef and he had the ref on his hip for about what seemed to be 5 minutes, I thought it took way longer than it should, is when his guy that got fouled, and the trainer didn't come out, but the ref still made him pull his guy off the floor. So Kansas State got to pick their worst free throw shooter to shoot the free throw. I'm like, the trainer never come out. I don't know why they had to take the guy out.
Well, Otzelberger came out. So he asked to come out and check on his player, and he went over there. So I wonder if that had something to do with it.
I don't think that counts, but I would have had beef with that too if I was honest.
Man. Well, Cole saw a lot more from the better seats once again. You know, I mean, yet again, I show up to the game and Cole has way better seats than I do out of nowhere, even though he was Snapchatting me like 2 hours before with no word of this. You know, it was a little harder up in the nosebleed to see what was going on. He wasn't courtside, but he was like 6 rows up. He had the second best seats that he routinely procured.
Oh, okay, man, he just abandons his parents like every home game.
No, they sat with me. My mom and dad were with me.
I'm guessing they were all in tow. Yeah, I think that's probably what happened. Because our row was a wasteland, you know, barren wasteland. Nobody there.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, John. You know, we'll get you back over there someday. So
I think I've just been like excommunicated from that circle. I stopped giving. Shout out to Mitch Fortner. You know, Mitch is my guy now. So I'm gonna have to keep going to Mitch. He was the reason that everything got situated okay on Saturday. No more Cole. All right, you have anything else in blow the whistle here, or is that it?
No, we can move on to talking more about the game here in a moment.
Okay. Well, we can't do that without telling you about our friends at Home Field Apparel. I'm sure there were plenty of Cats in attendance on Saturday in their Home Field Apparel who went to homefieldapparel.com and used promo code 3MA23 to get 15% off their first order. Had a couple fans of the pod say hello on Saturday. Appreciate those of you who did. And make sure if you are one of those that you get to homefieldapparel.com. Check out their 40-plus K-State offerings and 100-plus other teams. If you want to be like Derek, get a little creative with it. Homefieldapparel.com, promo code 3MA23 for 15% off your first order. And we are back in just a moment.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
It's kind of a wild box score when you look at it because, I mean, K-State got all but 10 of their points from 3 players. It was Arthur Kaluma with 23. Cam Carter had 21. David Gasson had 11 and 16. I mean, David Gasson, we definitely need to be talking some David Gasson. That guy has been turning it on here, and he got the one more year chance from everybody after the game when he took the mic, which I certainly hope is the case, that he'll be back for another year. But Cam Carter, man, I mean, that is so encouraging to see him pop for 21. He knocked down 3 triples, 3 for 8, 6 of 13, and not a totally blazing game from the field, but he was pretty good, and he looked much more comfortable than he had in a while and just more confident. It seemed like a game to get the confidence back for Cam Carter because it had been a rough month, maybe even more, really, for Carter by this point. So I don't know. What's the level of optimism? I guess, first of all, you can analyze DY, his game on Saturday, but what's the level of optimism that this is something that will stick? Because, look, if Cam is all of a sudden playing better, this is the right time of the year for it to happen, and maybe they can get hot and sneak into the NCAA tournament now that it seems like there's a little bit more chatter about that after the win on Saturday.
Yeah, I said it after the Kansas game because it had been too long since he had been good. I was like, Kansas State's not going to get right until Cam Carter gets right. Well, he got right against Iowa State, and that's why. One of the reasons why they won. We probably glossed over the fact that, yeah, Kansas State had more turnovers than Iowa State, but winning points off turnovers against the Cyclones 20-11 is pretty significant. And I don't know that we belabored that point enough, but Cam Carter was pretty good. And he let the game come to him. It didn't take as many risks, didn't get as greedy, didn't force he pressed a little still, I thought, in the game's first 5 to 10 minutes. Then something good happened, and usually the bad snowballs, I felt like the good snowballed on Saturday in Bramlage Coliseum for Cam Carter specifically. So you look up, and really, for me, the key stat was him only having 2 turnovers because, no offense to Cam, not trying to be was super negative, just being truthful. He's been a turnover machine during the stint where he's been not right. And I thought, him just not turning it over enough. Like, he doesn't have to score 21 points. We know that he can, but him not averaging 6 turnovers a game is almost more important than him scoring 20 a game.
Yeah, I'll just, before I jump to Cam there real quick, DY, to your point, I mean, look, you turned Iowa State over 14 times. You had 15 turnovers, so that's pretty much a wash, but you capitalized on the turnovers you forced, because 20 points on 14 turnovers is a terrific number. That was a big part of the game. K-State was outscored on points on turnovers in the matchup in Ames earlier this year. And I thought another big thing, guys, was K-State outscores them 15-2 on fast break points. They're so good in their half-court defense. K-State was able to get out and run before they could set that defense, push the envelope, and get some points, some easier baskets in transition. That was a big part of the game as well. They were outscored for transition points in the matchup in Ames as well. Regarding Cam Carter, yeah, he was really good on Saturday, and you hope that this enables him to turn things over now, not turn the basketball over, but turn over a new leaf for himself as they head into postseason play, the conference tournament, and potentially the NCAA tournament, and that this was a confidence booster for him because he was really good. I was concerned early in the game, guys. He turned it over in his first minute of action, and I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again, Cam, no. But boy, he turned it on, and, in the second half, obviously Arthur Kaluma was terrific as well. 23 points, 8 of 12 from the floor, 2 of 3 from 3. He had 3 steals. He had 7 rebounds. Kaluma was awesome. In the second half, Cam Carter has 14 points. Kaluma had 15. Those two combined for 29 of K-State's 37 second half points, and they combined to shoot 9 of 14 from 3 or from the floor in the second half. But, just like Kaluma, Cam filled the box score. He had 5 rebounds. He had 3 assists. He had 3 steals. He was good on the defensive end. And I'm hoping that this gets Cam going because they need him. And boy, did they need him on Saturday, because Tyler Perry goes 2 of 10 from the floor, gives you 6 points. He's in a little mini slump now. And as we all know, you can't have 2 of those 3 guys in a slump at the same time, or K-State usually doesn't win. So the fact that Cam and Kaluma were there and stepped up big really helped.
I know, John, you were kind of floating the question there a little or a little subtly or simply, and then we tackled everything else. But in terms of confidence that it keeps up for Cam, that it's not just a one-off, I can't say that I'm all the way there. Because it feels like there's been a lot more off than on. So I'm not all the way there. What I will say is that's 2 games in a row where Tyler Perry hasn't been right. But I feel more confident that Perry will get right for the Big 12 tournament and Cam Carter will keep it on. But I hope both do well, obviously.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you. I'm going to need to see more, but it certainly is an encouraging step in the right direction. I had kind of, and I don't mean, love Cam. Seems like a really good dude.
He's never going to come back on. Yeah.
I didn't think it was coming back. I thought it was gone. I thought it was gone this year, and I just packed it in on that. So that was great. If you would have told me, if you would have just given, this would have been a fun game beforehand. If you would have just given me the Tyler Perry stat line, 37 minutes, 6 points on 2 of 10 shooting, and told me, what's going to happen in the game, I certainly would not have felt good at all. So,
and I still knew that Perry was going to get a big one before it was over because he
did, man. That shot, one shot that he did hit was like, whoa.
He always gets one, man.
The toughest shot he took.
Yeah, even on his worst nights, he always gets a big one. Yep.
He even missed the front end of that free throw. Boy, was I like, oh my gosh, this is that. I'm like, I felt he was just having an off game. He had some really good looks. There were a couple kick out threes on rebounds where I was like, you gotta hit that. It felt big, and of course he hits a step back 3 with a hand in his face to put him up 60-59 or 60-49. And at that point, that's when I was like, all right, we've got this. Of course, then Iowa State quickly scored. Then there was a 10-second violation. I'm like, never make it easy. But
the 10-second violation was bullshit.
Yeah. So, but anyways, yeah, TP now in his last 2 games is 2 of 16 from the floor. You hope this is just a mini slump after his huge hot stretch. It's natural for that to occur, and he gets going again here in the Big 12 tournament. But for Cam, only 2 turnovers against the team that forces more turnovers than really anyone in the country. That's tremendous. He took care of the basketball, and he played aggressive and confident. I mean, he had some really nice takes to the rim as well. I thought K-State did some really nice things offensively, especially in that last 25 minutes of game time.
Well, what about DNG, man? I mean, David Gasson has been so huge. He's finding ways to score more, getting pretty crafty around the basket, and just being a beast on the board. 16 rebounds. Had a bunch of family there, obviously, for his senior day, but 11 points, 16 rebounds, 4 of 9 from the floor. 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 75% for my guy, David Gasson. And there was the great, I didn't have the Primo seats like Cole, so I couldn't see this. I had to see it on Twitter. But on Twitter, I saw the shot that, was it Landon? I'm trying to remember who had it from one of the Topeka news stations.
Yeah, Landon.
Okay, Landon. Shout out to Landon Reinhardt. Is that his last name?
Yeah, from KSNT. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so he got the footage of an Iowa State coach, honestly, doing the right things, shouting about David Gasson's free throw percentage as he was at the line and saying, get ready to rebound. And then Gasson hit both free throws and, gave him a little kind of, I think he called it a snarl, which, seems appropriate. Just gave him a little look over on the bench, which was nice. So you knew DNG was feeling it if that was how he was going to be responding throughout the game.
Yeah, I picked, for a story on K-State Online, I picked 2 standouts each week. And I think for the last 6 weeks, 5 of them I picked David Gasson. So I know the numbers are a little bit more powerful in this one, but this is what he's been doing for almost 2 months at this point. If you take the consistency into account and his role into account, he's probably been the second best player for Kansas State this season. And I don't know if there's a clear argument against that. So, no, great game, but it's just not a surprise. I think it's just been more of what he's been doing. It showed up in the box score a little bit more because he had all those rebounds. He had 16 rebounds now. And he'll probably, laugh a little bit at this and maybe disagree, but he did pad those 16 rebound numbers because I think he had 5 on one possession. So I will say that. In terms of the, one more year thing, obviously Kansas State wants that, and that's got to be probably atop the priority list in the offseason.
I think David Gasson's always been a tremendous defensive player, can guard 1 through 5, and he's really valuable in that role. But I think we've seen him over the last maybe 5-6 weeks become a far more assertive, aggressive player, not only on the glass, but attacking offensively, finishing at the rim through contact, playing stronger. And we know he's not 100% healthy right now. He is gutting things out for this team. And, he could easily sit on the bench and try to rest that knee, but he's out there playing through it, and he deserves a huge amount of credit. 16 rebounds is insane, especially when you consider in the game in Ames, guys, Kaluma, Will McNair, Gasson, and Jarrell Colbert combined for 8 rebounds. David Gasson had 16, doubled amount in this game in Manhattan alone. He had 7 offensive rebounds. Of course, as DY said, multiple ones were on that one possession. But, man, did he fight through some contact there and just played so incredibly aggressive. Over his last 7 games, he's averaging 10 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, shooting 60% from the floor. He is slowly but surely improving from the free throw line as well. His stroke looks much better. It looks more confident. And obviously, he's still playing terrific defense. We all want David Gasson back another year. He's a tremendous player, actually. And we talk about the big 3 all the time, right? But he is slowly, the things that he does, he's a big piece. So, I don't want to make him feel like it's excluded when we talk about the big 3 from a firepower standpoint. But, he's a complete player. He's becoming a very good player for this team.
And then I think this isn't so much about the game on Saturday. Jarrell Colbert's 3rd foul really kind of hurt him and his impact on the game. But you also have just on the fringes, more on the periphery of the team, like Jarrell Colbert and Day-Day Ames, I think playing in general better basketball at this stage of the year too, which is helping out. So you have some things coming together, which gives you optimism for where this could go. Now I realize we saw that game on Saturday. The 2 previous games were losing to a shorthanded Cincinnati team and then just getting destroyed by Kansas and Lawrence, who turned around and lost by 30 on Saturday at Houston. So it could all, that's why this team is where they're at on the bubble, because it can all come crashing down pretty quickly. But that was one of those games that just gives you a taste of what this team can be. And it is crazy. I know we're going to do another pod here that'll come out later this week. You should be seeing tomorrow that'll dive into a little bit more of the specifics on the NCAA tournament. But it is their 3rd top 10 win of the year. And you think about the season, they beat Villanova at home. They beat 3 top 10 teams. They also beat BYU. They've had some really high highs and great wins. It felt like such a weird year because you have those, and then you have all the overtime non-con games, and you have losing the way they did at Kansas, losing the way they did at Houston. it feels to me like it's been a very weird year, and there are just some things when you come to this point of the year that are kind of frustrating. Like sitting here, I saw the tweet that was comparing Mississippi State, who's like considered a solid 8 or a 9 seed right now, and their resume, less quad 1 wins, pretty similar in most cases, except the net to K-State. But yeah, K-State's sitting here like not even on the next 4 out, like just barely on the Joe Lunardi graphic. And even I saw Texas Tech fans being like, why are we considered like an 8 seed and Kansas is considered like a 3 when we have a better conference record and beat them by like 30 in Lubbock? You know, I mean, there are just some weird things with the net right now that to me seem kind of dumb. But of course, I'm going to say that when I'm sitting here in the position that K-State is in right now.
For KU, their wins early in the year over Tennessee and UConn are doing some heavy lifting for them. And it is what it is, but that's the case. They were really good in non-con before they got to the Big 12, which maybe is a sign that people are saying the Big 12 is overrated this year. Maybe it's not the case because KU was flattening teams before they started Big 12 action. Everyone thinks UConn and Tennessee are 2 of the 4 best teams in the country right now. KU, dispatched them and also dispatched Houston. But they also lost to UCF and West Virginia on the road. So maybe a weird year for KU as well. I agree with it being a weird year for K-State. Look, I understand for those that have been negative throughout the season and say this team is very frustrating. Yes. What I will say is I agree that at times they have proven, I say at times, maybe too frequently, they have proven to be painful to watch because of some of the stuff and some of the mistakes that they are making and some of the times the way that they look on offense, struggling to score, or the games that even Jerome Tang has had to call out the effort into question. But on the flip side, if you're going to look at it a glass half full, and I know not everyone wants to do that, if this is your down year, and that's an if, I get it. I feel like this probably is the down year for the Jerome Tang era at Kansas State. But if this is the down year, 8-10 in the Big 12 with 3 top 10 wins, 1 being against Kansas. If you get to beat Kansas and go 8-10, and that's your down year, if you were told before Jerome Tang was hired that his down year was going to be 8-10 in the league, the best league in America, and a win over KU, and still in the bubble, and all these top 10 wins at home as well, I think you'd take it. I just think it's been tougher to navigate because this team is at times very painful to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree. Iowa State's 9th in the net. That's actually K-State's highest ranked net win. But as you mentioned, I mean, and we'll talk about this on the Big 12 tournament preview pod that we do in the NCAA tournament breakdown profile. But, they've beaten, 4 really high tier opponents, and not a lot of teams in this country that are in the projected field have obtained. K-State's beaten the 18th team in the net, the 14th, the 12th, and the 9th ranked teams in the net rankings. They have some really high quality wins. It's unfortunate that, some of those quad 2 opportunities escape them, and some quad 1s as well on the road that they could have obviously had, where if it was just one more win, one more basket, one defensive stop, they're probably in the projected field right now with just one more quad 1 or quad 2 win even.
One traveling call.
I have a question. Yeah, boy. Joe Toussaint. All right, I've got a question for both of you guys here. Is it really just a matter of, had K-State beaten North Alabama, Oral Roberts, I feel like there was at least another 1 or 2.
Chicago State
by 20.
Bellarmine, they beat by 8 too in the opener.
Let's say you win all 4 of those games by 15-20, what conversation are we sitting here having right now?
Still a bubble one. I think the real problem is probably some of the other narrow misses, but you aren't hamstrung by your metric. You're probably on the right side of the bubble if you do that. I'll put it that way.
I think they're currently projected in, John, but they could still slip out. I think if they win those games by 15-20, you're talking about 4 different games. I think they're 71 in the net now. They jumped from 76 to 71 with the win over Iowa State. I think you could make a reasonable argument that they're probably top 60 in the net at that point, which is a far more attractive number and better odds.
Yeah. I think we're in agreement. You're just on the right side of the bubble instead of the wrong side of the bubble at that point. And let's be honest, some of that is at this point almost inexcusable, and it's hard to disagree, even though it did hurt your net rankings that much. Like Oral Roberts was an overtime game, right?
Yes, correct.
Oral Roberts finished almost last in the Summit League this year.
Yeah, they just lost to South Dakota State in the conference tournament, who is the 1 seed, by the way, and won the regular season conference championship, another team that K-State did beat and blow out in the non-con. But I think, to your point, like, I think that's what it took. If you would just blow out those teams, I think they're probably projected in right now. Because the weird thing is, guys, last year, if you look at their non-con, Nevada was their best win, and Nevada played in Dayton in the play-in game.
They have a lot more quad 1 wins, too.
Yeah, they did. In conference play, they stacked a lot more. But if you look at the non-con resume of this year's team, they actually have better wins because they beat Providence, who's a bubble team, on a neutral court, and they beat Villanova, who's a bubble team. Last year, they only beat one true team in the tournament, which was Nevada. This year, they beat 2 bubble teams that maybe one makes it in, and between those 2 teams. And so, I don't know.
And to be honest, another thing is luck a little bit too, right? Because USC and Miami are top 20 teams at the beginning of the year. Like, if those are quad 1 losses instead of quad 2 losses, we're probably having another conversation.
And USC, by the way, is going to win the Pac-12 tournament, so they're going to get in. They dominated Arizona last night. I'm telling you.
Right.
I'm telling you.
They're right at the weirdest time. Yeah.
I've been watching them, me and my late night hoops. They are they look like they were at the beginning of the season with Collier. He's just so tough, and I think they're going to go on a run. They're down 90th in the net, so you don't have to worry about them becoming a quad 3 or quad 4 loss for Kansas State. But, in most years, 8-10 and the toughest league in America is going to get you in the tournament. It's just those metrics that are getting them. And the lack of road wins. That hurts.
You did nothing on the road.
Well, we should probably save some of this conversation for what we're about to do. But anyway, K-State beats Iowa State. They've at least played themselves back into the conversation heading into the draw at the Big 12 tournament, which could include Iowa State again if they beat Texas on Wednesday night. So we're going to preview that. We'll look at a little bit more specifically K-State's bubble predicament heading into this weekend, or this week rather, at the Big 12 tournament coming up in our next pod. But as always, we appreciate Home Field Apparel. Promo code 3VOD23 to get 15% off your first order. We appreciate Holiday Distillery, and thanks to Nick Springer behind the scenes. For Derek Young and Cole Manbeck, I'm John Kurtz. Thanks for listening to another 3 Maw.